Wilkins said in the early 1970s that linguists have had remarkably little to say about vocabulary, and one can find very few studies which could be of any practical interest for language teachers. So, vocabulary was neglected because linguists had little to say about it. However, linguists saw that the errors of vocabulary are more misleading than the errors of grammar. So, for example, when a Swedish person listens or reads, "My father has an affair in that village," he or she may think that affair means shop because this word affair exists in his or her first language. Because of that, she or he thinks that it means shop, and here it means shop. Affair means shop. But in English, affair means extramarital relationship. So, affair doesn't mean shop in this sentence. Affair means, for example, my father has an affair in that village. It means that my father has a wife in that village, has extramarital relationship in that village, not a shop in that village. So because of these problems that are misleading, linguists wanted to, linguists saw these errors, and they thought that these errors that come from vocab and vocabulary, part of language system, they took it into consideration, and vocabulary became important for them, for linguists. And they started to focus on the relationship among words in the lexical system of the English language, and moreover, acquisition studies were done. And acquisition studies focused on how vocabulary is learned. So, linguists who studied lexical system of the English language saw that there are 2 points or factors that should be studied. So, look, lexical system of English should consider 2 factors. The first factor is the link between meaning and the world to which words refer. So, this has 2 factors again and 2 sub-branches again. Connotative meaning and denotative meaning. And we have another aspect in next slide that we will face. So here, denotative meaning and connotative meaning. You know the meaning of denotative meaning and also connotative meaning. When a word has a reference to an object, action, or event in the physical world, we say referential or denotative meaning. But there is a point here. Not every word has, physical object or has not reference in the physical world, or this may be somehow complicated. For example, in English, we have just grandmother. Although in the real situation, in the physical world, we have both mother's mother and father's mother. But in English, we have just one word. We have just one word as grandmother or grandma. So we don't say, differentiate between mother's mother and father's mother. So we have just one word that is grandmother or grandma. So we should be consider. We should pay attention to this point that somehow it may be complicated. Referential meaning or denotative meaning may be complicated sometimes. And connotative meaning. Connotative meaning is the meaning that relates to the attitudes and emotions of a language user in choosing a word and the influence of these on the listener or reader's interpretation of the world. So, what does it mean? It refers to the impression that a word may create in the mind of the learner. Okay, so some words may have positive impressions or positive connotations, and some words may have negative connotations or negative impressions in the mind of the learner. For example, wise. Everybody, what do you think about wise? Is it a positive word or negative word? Everybody, please tell me. Is it a positive word or negative word? Wise. When we say a person is wise, yes, it seems, yes, positive, yes. And when we say arrogant, what do you think about arrogant? Do you think it's a negative word or a positive one? Yes. The impression in our mind is negative impression or negative connotation we have. Yes, negative. But there are some words like ambitious that may have both negative and positive connotation. Do you agree with me? For example, when it means the desire to be successful, ambitious has positive meaning, the desire to be successful. But when it means aggressive, it has a negative meaning. So we should be, careful. We should be careful. We should pay attention that some words may have both positive and negative connotations, and teachers should take these points into consideration. And we also have that in our books. Connotative meaning derives from a mix of cultural, political, social, and historical sources. So, teachers should help their learners when they confront connotative meaning or when they confront words that may have both positive or negative meanings. Maybe in some cultures the word has positive meaning, but in another culture it has a negative meaning, or vice versa. So teachers should be aware of these points. I said lexical system of English takes two factors into consideration. The first one was the previous slide that I explained, and the second one is the sense relations that exist among words. And this is separated to two factors: syntagmatic relations and paradigmatic relations. So, what do we mean by syntagmatic relations and paradigmatic relations? Yes, syntagmatic relations are relations between words as they occur in sequence. Please pay attention to this word, in sequence. For example, collocations. Look at my example. We say my car was badly damaged in the accident, but we don't say my car was badly injured in the accident. We say damaged instead of injured. So the relationship between words as they occur in sequence. So this is syntagmatic relation. And also we say the dog barked. We don't say the dog roared. We say the dog barked. So we use these collocations. And collocations are some parts of syntagmatic relations. Okay? Also, when we face different collocations in everyday life, our knowledge about collocations grow, and then we can decide which collocation is compatible and which one is not compatible. So, because of our knowledge, because of our background knowledge, because of our everyday life knowledge. But sometimes, and we know that we say a long road instead of a tall road. And we know that we say a ripe banana instead of a mature banana. And these words, a long road and a ripe banana, are compatible, and a tall road and a mature banana are non-compatible, because we have heard that a long road, we have heard a long road, we have heard a ripe banana. So they are compatible for us. We can decide about their compatibilities or non-compatibilities. Okay, but there is an exception here. Some collocations are so maybe complicated or culture-specific, culture-bounded, so that we can't predict them from our knowledge. We can't say the meanings of them from our background knowledge. So, what are those collocations? For example, idiomatic expressions. Sometimes you hear something that you haven't heard before. Sometimes you hear something that you haven't faced before. So you cannot predict it from your knowledge. You cannot say the meaning of it from your knowledge, background knowledge, okay? So some of them are idiomatic expressions. For example, money doesn't grow on trees. When in the first time you heard this expression, maybe you didn't know the meaning of it. And you knew the meaning of it, and you searched the meaning of it to know the meaning of it. So money does not grow on trees. When you first faced this expression, you said, oh my God, what does it mean? And also metaphors, donkey's ears, or similes, such as pleased as punch. When we heard these things for the first time, we might not know the meaning of them, and we couldn't predict the meaning of them from our background knowledge, because as the book says, it is not possible to predict from knowing the meaning of each word in the collocation what is and what is not acceptable with some collocations. Paradigmatic relations. We talked about syntagmatic relations, and now paradigmatic relations. What are those relations? What are paradigmatic relations? So there are 3 types of paradigmatic relations: synonymy, antonymy, and hyponymy. Synonymy, antonymy, and hyponymy. These are paradigmatic relations. It means that Words not only have sequential relationships, but exist in complex relations with other words in language in a network of meanings. So this word, network of meanings, is really important in paradigmatic relations. For example, the first one is really easy, synonymy. As you know, synonymy means that one linguistic item can be exchanged for another without changing the meaning of the sentence or utterance. For example, he answered the question courteously. We can put politely in this sentence, and politely doesn't change the meaning of this sentence. So easily we can put politely in this sentence. So we can exchange one word for another word. But some words are not substitute. We cannot substitute some words in all contexts because meaning depends on context. For example, look at my example, please. Plastics and metals that are the materials used for making airplanes should be strong and light. Here, what is the meaning of light? Does it mean glowing and shiny? No, of course not. Light has the meaning of glowing and shiny, yes. Shiny and glowing are synonyms of light. Yes, you're right. But here, in this context, we cannot put shiny or glowing in this sentence because light here means not heavy. Light, not heavy. So we can't use unsuitable meanings or unsuitable synonyms. We can't use synonyms that do not relate to our context. Okay, so context is really important. So what is the advantage of synonyms for learners at basic levels, and what is the advantage of synonyms for learners at advanced levels? So basic levels, advanced levels. At basic level, teachers can relate a new word to words they already know. So teachers activate their background knowledge, activate the learner's background knowledge so that they can learn a new word. Okay? And by activating their knowledge, it means that they give some synonyms for them. They give some simple synonyms for them so that they can relate the new word to previously known words. Okay? And at advanced levels, avoid repetition by using synonyms. When we want to write something, when we want to write academically, when we want to speak academically, we shouldn't use words over and over again. And we use, for example, therefore in our writing many times. Instead of therefore, we can use so, thus, as a result. These are synonyms, and these synonyms can add variety to our text. These synonyms can add variety to our speech. So synonyms at advanced levels are so important. And antonymy. We studied synonymy, which was one of the paradigmatic relations, and now we should study antonymy, which is another paradigmatic relation. Antonymy. You know the meaning of antonymy. There are 3 types of antonymies. For example, complementarity. The first one is complementarity. The second one is converseness. And the third one is gradable antonymy. So what is the meaning of complementary antonymy or complementarity? What is the meaning of it? Complementarity is used for oppositions such as male, female, dead, alive. So these are clear-cut oppositions, and one excludes the other. Male, female, dead, alive. But we have another category, converseness. Converseness is a relationship where one term implies the other, not excludes the other, implies the other. And for example, parent, children. You may say that these aren't oppositions of each other, and these are not the opposites of each other, and they have some relationships between them. Yes, you're right. There's a relationship between them. There's a relationship between them. So parent, child, trainer, trainee, or teacher, student. So there's a relationship between them, and one term implies the other. So gradable antonymy. What is the meaning of gradable antonymy? So look, the meaning is really clear. Gradable. It means that we have some grades or scales. For example, water. Consider water. We have icy water, cold, then cool, tepid, after that lukewarm, warm, hot, boiling. Okay? We have some scales and a scale of items. We create a scale of items here. And there's a problem here, and learners may face, learners may encounter. For example, they may not have these things in their first language. For example, icy water. They may not have icy water in their first language, or they may not have tepid water in their first language. Okay, so they may face some problems, and teachers should help them. And another problem in this area, antonymy, in this antonymy area, another problem that learners face is that words have different opposites in different contexts. So, for example, we cannot say that the only opposite of soft is hard. No. Soft has the opposite rough or loud. It may have many oppositions. It may have many opposites. So we cannot say that one word has only one opposite. So teachers should take this into consideration and should help learners and should say to the learners that we don't have one opposition or one opposite for one word. One word may have many opposites in different contexts, in different situations, in different sentences. The third one, do you remember the first one and the second one, which we discussed about, we discussed paradigmatic relations? What were those two? Please. The first one was, as you may remember, it was synonymy. The second one was antonymy, and this one is hyponymy. Okay, hyponymy. Hyponymy is a relationship in which one word includes others within a hierarchy. Look at this diagram. Computer, keyboard, mouse, and monitor. Keyboard, mouse, and monitor. So keyboard, mouse, and monitor are components of computer. Do you agree with me? Keyboard, mouse, and monitor are components of computers. So in hyponymy, we have superordinate word and subordinate word. Superordinate word in this diagram is computer and subordinate or co-hyponyms are keyboard, mouse, and monitor. Okay, in hyponymy we have superordinate and subordinates. And also, for example, look at another example: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner are meals of the day. So superordinate is meal and subordinates are breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or we call them co-hyponyms or subordinates. Okay, here we have two factors: active vocabulary and passive vocabulary. What do we mean by active and passive vocabulary? When we face a word, when we encounter a word in a text or in a listening audio or audio file, audio file, we know that the meaning of that word, but we can't produce the word. We cannot produce the word in our own speech, in our own writings. So it is not active vocabulary, it is passive. It means that learners cannot easily produce those words in their speech or writings. So they are passive vocabularies. But if they could guess the meaning of it, and also they could easily produce the word in their speech or writings, it means that the vocabulary is active, not passive. So when the learners can automatically produce the words in different contexts and in different situations, it means that they have learned those words, okay? Because they automatically produce those words. And what are the strategies for vocabulary learning? There are two strategies in the book: cognitive strategies and metacognitive strategies. Okay? So what are cognitive strategies? Working on new words in order to understand, categorize, and store them in the mental lexicon. So we use our mind, our brain, to understand, categorize, and store the words. So this is a strategy. So examples are making associations. As I explained before, do you remember networks of meanings? Here, making associations means networks of meanings by synonymy, antonymy, and hyponymy. With these things, with these relationships, with these associations, with these networks of meanings, learners can learn something. Learners can take this strategy to learn vocabulary. And another one is learning words in groups. Learners can make the words in groups and learn them. And syntactic structure. Some of the learners learn words by syntactic structure. What does it mean? It means that, for example, readable. Consider the word readable, readable. And the learner says, okay, able means the ability to do something, and read, I know the meaning of read, and readable is an adjective. So the text that is readable means that I can read it. So readable. And the learner uses this syntactic structure to learn vocabulary. And contextual cues. For example, when the words are in some contexts, the learner or the reader or the learner, okay, related to his or her background knowledge. For example, in a context or in a text, he or she may confront a word, and with contextual cues, he or she can guess the meaning of it. And also intralingual cues, not interlingual cues, intralingual cues. What does it mean? It means that, for example, pajamas, or in Farsi we say pijame. Okay, pijame. So the learner relates this word to his or her first language. So in his or her first language, pijame exists, and in English, he or she confronts pajamas. So she or he learns it. So this is a strategy for vocabulary learning. And another one is metacognitive strategies. Metacognitive strategies. What does it mean? It means involving the learners in conscious efforts to remember new words. So, consciously they do something and learn vocabulary. For example, consciously they collect words from authentic contexts and they learn them. Consciously, they make word cards and they memorize them or they learn them. Consciously, they categorize words into lists and they learn them. So on and so forth. Okay, these are some strategies for vocabulary learning.